Then Stephen.
Yeah, sure. The project was approved before a project plan or business case was finalised. Could you explain why that was the case?
I think the judgment of the project was that there was a desire to move quickly on the project at pace. That's the first part. The second part was that the assessed risks for the project were seen primarily, and mistakenly as we now know, around the development of the fire control centres, and therefore there was a need to move ahead on those centres, the physical centres, and as a consequence of that, the project went ahead with, as you say, an incomplete
Sure. They moved so quickly, they built the centres and completed two of them 3 months, only just 3 months after they managed to get the IT contract approved.
Absolutely right. And the judgment made, as I say, completely wrongly as it's now turned out, was that the IT would be the more straightforward part of this and the centres would be the difficult bit.
So if they're moving so quickly, why did it take them until 2007 to do a comprehensive assessment of costs? What was happening for 3 years?
I think I can't answer the detail as why there wasn't a comprehensive assessment of costs. What I can say is that the focus was very much on the securing the delivery of the physical centres.
Okay, well perhaps you might be able to help us with why given that the contract was flawed at the outset, never mind that it was mismanaged, which impacted on your ability to terminate, but the contract was flawed from the outset and you got professional advisors to advise you on that contract. Why did you then continue to use those professional advisors on the termination?
I think when you say the contract was flawed at the outset, we've got to distinguish the elements of the project here. I think there were clearly issues about how the project was started, as we talked about earlier, and the extent to which there was adequate buy-in from the fire and rescue services. So that's one issue.
Well, they weren't illegally bound by it. They weren't even required to use it.
Absolutely right. And this was clearly a risk identified at the time in the discussion on the project. The expectation was that by working with the fire and rescue services, they would be persuaded that this was a project they should come on.
Sorry, is your evidence that the contract wasn't flawed at the outset?
No, what I'm saying is there are two separate issues.
Is that yes or no, please?
No,
was it flawed or not?
I think there were clearly issues about the way in which the project started without full buy-in from the service. I'm absolutely clear about that, and I go along with the view that the NEO expresses. The contract, which we're talking about here, that went badly awry, was the IT contract with the ADS that wasn't signed until 2007.
Can you tell us what your analysis is of the flaws in the contract at the outset?
I think in terms of the project, I want to distinguish the contract from the project from the contract.